Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It looks like Gaijin is just releasing everything today. They have released the new event, which is coming out, they've released the sales, they've also done the pass to developers, and now it's time for a community update, which is basically a news item where they talk about what's going to be coming in the next major update and also other stuff that is going to be going on. So in this video, we're going to go through everything that is in this community update. One thing I would say is there's a ton of information in this one. There's a massive amount of stuff. So we're not going to be covering everything in heavy detail. What I was thinking is maybe doing some kind of like future videos over the next week if I have some time talking about very specific parts of it. But in this video, I'll give my general thoughts on what they're talking about, tell you about the information, and we can have some discussions in the comments and also on the streams about what is in this kind of post. There's a lot of cool stuff. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it looks really cool. I feel like there is a little bit of a problem we've talked about before, like with the amount of information we get before an update. I kind of feel like it would be nice if there was just a little bit less information, but I know a lot of people like seeing this stuff, so maybe I'm in the minority there. But before we get into it, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Let's get started. So the first part of it is the seed event. They talk about the seed event here. They talk about why they did it during the week, since obviously there was a lot of people who talked about that being a bit of an issue because they weren't able to play it. But the reason why they did it during the week is because they wanted the devs who were working to monitor what was going on and change it and adapt it if required. And what they're actually going to do is they're going to do another event from the 2nd of May until the 5th of May. So basically what you're going to get is the same thing with a few changes and some modifications, which isn't really a surprise. So they've done the first test, they're doing the second test, and then the general idea of doing this is so they can then take the findings and then push it into its own like kind of operation in a World War mode format, and then maybe also spread it to other areas of the game, such as realistic and simulator. They also talk about a few of the issues with the event, such as the fact that they had to reduce the defending teams because the MiG-21s were just eating the Phantoms alive. So they did that, which was quite nice after a day. Also, at the same time, they've talked about the strengths of the Shilkas and the S-75s and how they want them to actually be strong because of the fact that they want it to be a challenge. The biggest issue I generally have with the actual event itself is if it's designed for World War mode, then this part kind of makes sense, right? Like their strength is intentional as we want it to be a challenge and for players to use tactics, teamwork, and utilize different weaponry types to take them out. Overall, they're difficult but not impossible to engage, which is very true. And if you're in a World War mode setting, this type of thing is key. The problem is this test is not that, right? This is a bunch of individual players coming together to try and win battles. Yeah, you could technically squad up, but you're not going to get the same kind of setup, which is a bit of a problem. And also, there was a bunch of people saying that they didn't get enough rewards for destroying the SAM sites, which is always going to happen. Like, you could give people 1 million SL for destroying them, and it won't be enough. But, you know, they have changed it. So, in the next seed event that they're going to be testing, this are the changes, basically. So, the players will be distributed a bit more randomly at the front when spawning, which is really good. Also, this is a huge change. Enemy planes will, near allied spawn points will be highlighted on the map. This is fantastic. This is really good because if you played that mode, basically what the defenders, the MiG-21s would do, they would search for missiles which are flying around the place at the F4 Phantoms. They would follow them, see the Phantoms, then hit them. Then after that, they would just go camp above the spawns of the F4s and just kill them as they spawned. Really cool, right? They've also removed Afghanistan, which is probably a good idea. It was a little bit too high altitude, and also the missiles could basically hit you from spawn. And they are likely adding some other maps to the pool. So they're basically just taking the template that they've created in those other maps and just plonking them in different places, which is a fine idea. The only issue is going to be the altitude on the kind of maps themselves. and that kind of matters quite a lot because when it comes to missiles and also speed of vehicles, makes a huge difference. You can also see here there's going to be 12 players on the defending team, which is a change they already made, and also you get double the amount of SLNRP for destroying the SNR-75 tracking radar, which is cool. And then you also get a ton more mission score for destroying the SNR-75 and also some of the other stuff too. So overall, pretty nice. You know, these are all positive changes. I personally didn't really enjoy the seed event, but I think if I'm in a more like cooperative or teamworky scenario, whether it's like PvE or whether it's like World War mode, I think I would actually enjoy it. It's just the fact that it was kind of just in random stuff and it didn't really work very well. So now they talk about the next event vehicles, right? Obviously, T-3485 got announced today, so that's going to be coming in about a week's time from now. But they also talk about the future ones. So first of all, it's a familiar name, our boy Kurt Tank. So after this T-34 event, there's going to be an aircraft event, and then there's going to be a D-Day event in early June, and then after that there'll be a gap of about a month, and then they're going to do a naval event. So basically they're skipping the naval one again in this period of time because I'm guessing they don't want to do a naval vehicle for D-Day or for the Victory Day because they want people to actually play it. So basically you're getting the T-3485 for the 80th anniversary of Victory Day, which is kind of fun. And then also the one after that will be one of Kurt Tank's designs. If you don't know who Kurt Tank is, he's a German. He was involved in a lot of German designs during the war, but also mainly after the war, I would say, is probably his most kind of important designs. He was involved in some Indian vehicles, such as I think he helped develop the first Indian supersonic jet, which is really cool. And then also he designed a bunch of stuff for Argentina because he's not beating the allegations about Germans disappearing from Germany to certain areas of the world. But yeah, so he was involved with India, he was involved with Argentina. I believe he was part of the Pucara or the Pulqui setup over there. So we're either going to get an Argentinian vehicle or probably an Indian vehicle, or it could just be a German vehicle from the Second World War, because he was obviously involved in the Focke-Wulf 190, the TAR series of aircraft as well. So it'll be really cool to see what they're going to do. I do know that one of the modelers who makes like user models, at Nova actually made a Indian jet, which was designed by Kurt Tank. So there's no real reason why that couldn't turn up. The Marut, as it's known, the HF Marut. I just don't know what tech tree that would get in, but we'll probably do a video talking about Kurt Tank and what he ended up designing. So you can get an idea of what that event vehicle is probably going to be. In early June, you know, there's going to be an event dedicated to D-Day. Not a surprise. Last year was the Churchill Avery, which was fantastic. And this time it's going to be an American tank as a reward. So this could be basically anything. I've talked about it before. I would like to just see like a Dozer Sherman or something like that. You know, like a Sherman 105 with a Dozer. I'd be completely happy with. Maybe it might be another vehicle which just has a donkey gun on it. You know, there's quite a few American anti-bunker kind of tanks, which it could just be a DD tank, you know, the Donald Duck boys, basically the amphibious Shermans. That would also be kind of cool to see. So those are options which could all turn up. There's also, you know, other things that were used during that area. Could just be kind of like this T-3485 where it's going to be a Sherman which is dressed up, you know, and that would also be completely fine. And then, of course, the naval event afterwards. But don't worry about naval, guys, because we have some pretty interesting news to talk about later on. But yeah, these events sound really good, you know, no issues at all. World War mode, they don't really talk about anything here, apart from the seed test is for an upcoming World War mode. You remember we had the leaks about a new World War mode, which was going to be a Iranian one, like Iran versus Iraq War one. Maybe it's going to be that, who knows? But it looks like they're going to do another mission test after the seed one that will be in aerial warfare in the same format as the seed event. So they're going to do, my guess is probably like the strategic bombing thing that was talked about a little bit ago, once again from the leaks. I think that'll be interesting to see how they're going to do it. You've got to remember, in the last dev server, they actually had a bunch of like buildings and stuff that were just sat in the files, and none of them have been used yet. So for me, it's probably something to do with that. So another kind of aerial bombing mission. But the major thing is they're just saying they're working on World War mode. They're still developing it. Hopefully it works. Hopefully, you know, they create a practice mode. Hopefully they make it a bit more fun and instead of competitive, because you know the competitive side didn't really work very well. So next, upcoming major updates. They talk about massive vehicles. Battleships are coming. So they did say in December that there was going to be submarines this year, at least submarine tests, and then some larger battleships. Well, that's what are coming. You can see here they'll be bringing in some superior, iconic, big, vast, and yacht-bite ships. You may be able to see that this might be some kind of hint towards the vehicles that are coming in, because there's not really much point in putting all of these different names or descriptions, which mean exactly the same thing. So maybe somebody could work out what all of these things are. One thing I will say is using Yottabyte might be a little bit of a giveaway because of the fact that why would you end up using like this word over others? It might be something to do with this, but I'm just letting you know, if you want to go into like crazy theories, I know a lot of naval players really enjoy their kind of crazy theories. So yeah, might be interesting to have a look at certain like little things with this. Anyway, so we're getting bigger ships in the next update. The second update of the year is usually the one where naval gets the most love. It's when the beta test came out. It's when, open beta started turning up destroyers. You usually have a lot of battleships. It's when the French were added last year, and when the Italian naval stuff was added previously. Like they usually the second update is naval, and it looks like this one's going to be naval. But there's also going to be some aircraft and ground vehicles, like there always is, including a rather cool helicopter for the US. So that's the Cheyenne, or the Cheyenne, because there's nothing really else to add, is there? I suppose you could do stuff which, variants of things that we have in the game already, but the Cheyenne was leaked a long time ago. I suppose you could do something like the Comanche, but no, it's going to be the Cheyenne, isn't it? The AH-56, if you don't know what I mean. If you want to have a look at it, we'll talk about it, as I said, in like a future video, and then kind of like go from there. But that's what the thing is probably going to be. It is a pretty cool vehicle. I just wonder if they'll add it as a premium or not. So then we have a jet for Japan, which is probably going to be the F2. Or it'll be a Thai vehicle and everyone will be disappointed. But let's hope it's the F2, so not everybody is disappointed. Also in December, they talked about the more advanced AA systems, and also they talked about the idea of bringing in multi kind of vehicle AA systems. So how they were going to add them in. And it looks like, at least from this picture, the way they're going to add them in is by connecting them together. Now, some people will probably know what these things are. I am not very well versed in kind of present day AA systems because I don't think this will fix the game. So there's no point in looking at them. The reaction time that you have to have involving, shooting down a lot of the planes that can instantly lock you after a second of spawning is pretty much impossible to actually get. So yeah, it's nice to see all these pretty models. I'm sure we'll see them over the coming weeks in devlogs. Don't think it'll make that much of a difference, but we'll see what goes on. Now, top tier French premium tank. Obviously, pretty much every nation in the game has got itself some top tier premium stuff nowadays, just because, people want to use them to grind, and France is one that's missing. Now, the reason they've given for why they have not added in a prototype variant of the Leclerc as a premium or a standard variant of the Leclerc is because they are worried about the armor of the vehicle. So if they add in a prototype variant of the Leclerc, it doesn't have the right armor, or it has less armor because they want it to be a lower BR, then it should be, and then people bring out sources saying, no, this one should be higher, then you're going to get a 12er vehicle. Now, it's pretty... at this point, right, At this point, we have top tier premiums. We also have 11.7 premiums that technically should be 12.0, but they're 11.7. So like they're slightly below what you would class as the top BR. And they're playing pedantics here. Like when it comes to now, we can't add it because it might be a 12.0. It's like, all right, we'll just add a Leclerc with worse ammunition. Oh, you already said you're gonna do that, but you're not sure if you wanna do that or if you want to do the prototype. Literally just add a Leclerc with a slightly worse round. Oh, it didn't fire it. That's fine. There's a bunch of vehicles in the game that didn't exist. There's also a bunch of vehicles in the game that fire rounds that they also never fired, whether they be worse rounds than they have or even better rounds than they had. But for some reason, this is like a sticking point for France. Like, it just can't be done. So, what's the solution? Guess what you get? That's right. You get a Leopard 2. Which you already have in your tech tree, the Leopard 2A4NL from the Benelux stuff. So everybody gets a Leopard. The Germans get a Leopard, you know? The Swedish get a Leopard. The French get a Leopard. Fantastic. Isn't that really fun? Isn't that so much more interesting than a prototype Leclerc or like another Leclerc with a worse round? Yeah, it's awesome. So it says, this is reliable and proven MBT that will serve the premium role well. Oh yeah, that's definitely true. While allowing us to retain the Leclerc MSC prototype for the research tree and offer further support for lesser populated battle rating ranges. Both of these tanks are planned to come together in the next major update. So yeah, basically, the Leclerc prototype, instead of being a premium, it's just going to come to the tech tree. One of the problems that they actually talk about is they don't want the premium vehicle to be on an island by itself. But it seems like they're okay with a standard tech tree vehicle being on an island by itself. So yeah, at least it's coming, right? So you'll be able to research a Leclerc prototype in the next major update, and also you'll have a Leopard 2A4 NL as a premium, which is sad. Like, I'm not going to lie, I would prefer if that wasn't the case, but c'est la vie. That's where we're at. They're also going to be updating Berlin and Kuban, so we'll have to see what they look like. Berlin's kind of a busted map because it's the historical issue and you can't actually fix it, but Kuban got remodeled and generally is a little bit more fun. So I would say it's nice to see they're updating old maps. They obviously added a ton of maps in the last few years, so I think it's better that they remodel old ones, make them look nicer. This generally looks really cool too. Gonna look forward to looking around them on the dev server. Also, there's going to be a new air battle map, which is going to be the Falkland Islands. So, if you were wondering what the Kurt Tank event vehicle is going to be, or if you were wondering, what one of the themes of the next little period is going to be, well, guess what? More conflicts. Yeah, I did. No comment. I'm British. All right. We have opinions. No comment. All right. That's all I'll say. But anyway. That gives you a general theme of what you're going to see kind of going forward from Port Stanley to Port San Carlo and also to Goose Green, right? So that's there too. They're going to be improving tooltips once again in the next major update. So the tooltip, when hovering over any player's name on the scoreboard, will now show their fancy player background instead of just their name written as plain text, which I think is actually really cool. And also, vehicle stat cards will now show in full when hovering over a vehicle name in the scoreboard while in battle. You can also add a vehicle to your wish list from the context menu here. And lastly, all tooltips have been improved in the battle debriefing menu as well. So they're continuing with adding more stuff to the UI, which generally I think is fine. You know, I don't honestly think that's a problem. VFX updates are coming to Afterburners. So this is generally what it's going to look like. I think overall it looks nice. You know, no issues here. It's looking beautiful kind of going forward. I can't really tell what this vehicle is. It has like 120s. Oh, is it like a Vigan? It might be a Vigan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like a Vigan. I might be wrong. And then they're also adding fuel dumping. So basically, you are going to be able to get rid of fuel like this. So obviously the F111 was known for dumping fuel, same with stuff like the F105, for example. So both of those, I'm sure many others will be able to do it. It says when the engine's running in afterburner mode, the fuel can catch fire. Other sources can also cause fire, for example, flying missiles or nearby explosions. Even another aircraft flying in afterburner can cause the fuel to catch fire. So, burning fuel emits intense heat, which allows infrared guided missiles without anti jamming systems to target it. You can use this ability to swap your fuel for an improvised heat trap to divert a missile from the aircraft. However, this functionality can become bait for missiles depending on the flight angle. yeah, yeah, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. Like that, no. Do it for cinematic purposes, or if you need to like go quickly, pretty quickly. Don't do it to try and divert missiles. That ain't gonna work. But yeah, they obviously just say they're working on the next major update stuff, which is pretty cool. And yeah, they put out a ton of information in this. Just a metric ton of information on these things. As I said, we're probably going to break down some of this stuff about, what vehicles are going to come, or at least predictions and things. But yeah, there's a really good read, a lot of really good stuff. And to be honest, I'm looking forward to the next month or so. I think generally, with this much going on in War Thunder, it's kind of cool to see it all. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check this out for yourself. Make sure to leave some thoughts in the comments. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.